VigilanteWilliamson here with something a little bit different. I wanted to do a little playoff breakdown. Hopefully you guys like it. I'm gonna try some things that I don't normally do in my videos. Hopefully I can get it out by Friday because it is late or early depending on what time it is Friday morning as I'm recording this, but I've been wanting to get this out all week, so we will see. So before we get too deep into it, I'm trying to get to 250 subs by the end of the month. I'm very close. I think we're at 242. So thank you for everyone who subbed based upon the Lamar Jackson video. Please, if you like the video, please like the video. If you're so obliged to share and subscribe, do that. And even if you do none of these things, thank you for watching. Thank you for your time. So let's get into last week. Not gonna do it quite in order, but I am gonna get through some of the games that we already saw. So first off, Browns and Texans. The Texans, shout out to Houston. I live in the Houston area. They put a beating on the Browns. It looked like Joe Flacco really wasn't, for lack of a better term, young enough, or just in the shade. He looked like a older quarterback who had PTSD. CJ Stroud may be the best rookie quarterback of all time. I'm not exaggerating. He looked incredible in that game, and the Texans as a defense also looked pretty good because they're the ones who were hitting Flacco and giving him that PTSD feel. He threw 2 picks. So shout out to Houston. Now that Houston and the Lions are actually both good at the same time, there's a non-zero chance that's the Super Bowl this year or one of these years. I think Houston has a nice team that's going to be dominant for years to come. Speaking of that type of team, the Kansas City Taylor Swifts, they beat the Miami Dolphins pretty handily in a very cold game. Neither team looked that good to me. Kansas City just looked less bad. Patrick Mahomes had an okay game. There was still a lot of drops. The receivers aren't that great. Tyreek Hill didn't do that much. I say that much. He did score a touchdown, but didn't have those monster numbers, only 62 yards. And as a result, Kansas City had a pretty okay time with the Miami Dolphins. We're going to skip one game and come back to it. Let's go to my game, the Rams versus the Lions, which is one of the most nerve-wracking experiences I've ever had in my life as a fan, as anything. The Lions, despite their best efforts, have won their first playoff game in 32 years. It came down to the absolute wire in a 24-23 finish. Matthew Stafford has to feel sick. He has to feel like, damn it, another time I'm in this building and I do everything I can to win and it still doesn't matter. Because that's what it was. He really outplayed Goff to be 1,000%, but we have a little bit of a better team, just enough. And then there was those timeouts that really cost the Rams. They had called early timeouts in the half, and I think that's the difference between them getting another possession late against the Lions and winning that game. So shout out to the Lions. We'll see how homer my picks are with them going forward. Shout out to the Lions and shout out to the Rams. They played a good game. They have nothing to be ashamed of. Puka looks like one of the best receivers in the league, which he has been all year. He may be one of the best rookie receivers of all time. I was talking about CJ Stroud. Puka's nice, very nice. You had the Steelers and Bills on Monday. The Bills beat the Steelers. Similar to what I felt about the Kansas City game, even though the Bills had some impressive plays. It just kind of felt like they're just the least bad team. Neither team was crazy impressive. I mean, Mason Rudolph was the starter. There's going to be a lot of talk about what they should do with Tomlin over in Pittsburgh after another playoff loss. He only has 3 playoff wins the past 10 years. I actually tried to make a video on Tomlin twice this week. It's a combined 30-minute drunken rant, and so you probably won't hear it unless I edit it down into something usable. But I know a lot of heat is on Mike Tomlin. Is this his last year there in Pittsburgh? And I'm of the opinion that if it is, and that's okay. Sometimes you got to move on. I do think people need to have a little bit more respect for what Tomlin did there. I mean, I can talk about the Lions until my face turns blue because it took us 30 years to do a 3-year rebuild. I don't think everybody is ready for that wilderness that comes with instability of a franchise. And I think a lot of people underrate stability in a franchise. So if Mike Tomlin's done in Pittsburgh, there's no shame, but don't blast him. Don't act like he's a terrible coach because he hasn't had all the success you might like. Because it could be a lot worse. And a lot of y'all don't want worse. Say that as a Lions fan. Hell, Bills fans know until recently how hard it is to get wins, how hard it is to get into the playoffs. So yeah. But they're still doing good. Shout out to Josh Allen, no matter what I think of him. I think he can throw a lot of picks, but he's a good player. And the Bills were a good team, and they are still moving on in the playoffs. And so now the second to last game, it was actually the last game of the week, but we're saving one for last. You all know which one. You all can guess why. But the Eagles complete their collapse. The Bucks look really nice. I don't agree with the spread because they're going against us next. 6.5 is a lot, even on the road. I am nervous about the Bucks, as you guys will see when I kind of break down the Lions and the Bucks. And of course, I did not forget. I have to say the best for last.
I'm giving up on this team, and I'm selling it. Every year, I can't take the stress of this shit no more. Y'all let the Packers drop 50. How the fuck y'all do that? Micah and the defense. Mike McCarthy, sit your fat ass down. I see you trying to sneak out the back door. And
you need a seat, sir?
I need to sit down. These niggas suck.
The Cowboys. How about them Cowboys getting blown out at home? The score was 48-32, but it wasn't that close. The Packers, the scary Packers, who are still dangerous. They're too young, one of the youngest teams in playoff history, and they're too young to know what they're doing. They're too young to be afraid of what they're doing, and they're a very dangerous team. And Jordan Love, God damn it, the Packers have done it again. Their third great quarterback. Since 92, they only had 3 real starters, and that's all they've needed. They had the Brett Favre era, and he went to the Jets. And then they had the Aaron Rodgers era, and he went to the Jets. In 15 years, Jordan Love is going to have a Super Bowl at least, be one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and he'll be on the Jets. All jokes aside, shout out to the Packers and the Cowboys. I won't lie, I got a lot of schadenfreude this week. That's where you take a little pleasure in the suffering of others, because it's the Cowboys, right? It kind of got serious, though. It actually got pretty dark. Some people, people say, yeah, I got a beautiful life, but if I didn't have my family, I'd be drinking right now. It's like, oh man, this is dark. This is really dark. Remember, all sports are rigged. Vegas always wins. Try not to get too emotional about these sports. All that said, Cowboys, lots of news and notes on them because they're keeping Mike McCarthy. Despite all the hate, despite all the people who want them to change over to start that rebuild again. It could take 30 years to do a 3-year rebuild. I keep saying that with the Lions because our rebuild was only 3 years, but it took 30 years to get to that point. It took all this in the wilderness before we found the right guy, gave him enough years, and rebuilt to what we have. So it can happen fast when you actually get everything in order, but it can take forever to get everything in order. And I say that because, yes, Mike McCarthy probably needs to be replaced because even though I appreciate getting to the playoffs to constantly get there, 12-5 seasons, here we go, just to get bounced out pretty much every year, that's a lot. That's a lot. But to Cowboys fans, like I said, I did get a little bit of pleasure off of y'all pain, but I feel a little bit bad because some of you guys are really suffering. It's real pain. It sucks. I can see how it sucks. You guys are going to run it back next year, but you'll probably get at least 10 wins. You'll probably be in the playoffs. Don't take that for granted. Don't take that for granted. The difference between the Lions and the Cowboys over the past 30 years is those playoff appearances. Obviously, this is our first win, and the Cowboys have had more wins than that. But still, don't take for granted that you get to the playoffs, that you might win a game. It sucks. It sucks because you want to win a championship. You want to win that first championship in about 30 years for them. But it doesn't look like it's going to happen. It doesn't look like it's going to happen. You guys are going to bring back Mike McCarthy. And it looks like maybe Dan Quinn will get hired somewhere. He might be the real problem, but that's another can of worms. I do feel for you Cowboys fans after watching so many of you guys' videos, so much of your pain. I also feel that I feel for you that Mike McCarthy's coming back, but that's not the end of the world. Sometimes teams run it back that one last year just because, to keep everything in order. So you guys run it back. Everybody knows what it is, and more than likely, this will get blown up next year if things don't improve, or maybe they do. Maybe you run it back this year and everyone has that pressure, and this is the year you finally break through. So good luck to the Cowboys fans. I can't believe I said that. It just shows how sad the situation is. Remember, it's fake. And good luck with Mike McCarthy one more game. Speaking of coaches, this is off topic. We'll get back into the playoffs. The Chicago Bears have not fired their coach. A lot of people expected them to. A lot of people expected Harbaugh to go there. I'm, as a semi-Michigan fan who is a Lions fan, happy I don't have to deal with Harbaugh every week, or I don't have to deal with Harbaugh twice a year. I already dealt with the shit with Matthew Stafford. I don't want a bunch of conflicted fans. Oh, well, we love him from what he did at Michigan, whether he cheated or not. I don't want to deal with all that. So I'm glad he's not going to be in our division as far as a coach. But there's a whole nother conversation as far as what Chicago Bears should be doing. Should they fire their coach? Should they take Caleb Williams number one? Justin Fields looks a lot better at the end of the season than he did at the beginning. I am no large lover of persons, and I don't really believe in Caleb Williams. I mean, it's hard for me to believe in any quarterback until they're actually in the NFL or actually under NFL coaching and NFL development. It's just, you never know. You never know if you're going to get somebody good or somebody bad. It's hard for me. It's hard for me to tell. You know, I'm not going to act like I'm Mel Kiper, who actually is not that good at his job. That's another can of worms. So I don't know. Maybe Caleb Williams is the guy, but nobody seems can't miss. When's the last time you had a can't miss guy? Quote unquote Andrew Luck? And he only played 8 or 9 years. It's not easy. It's not easy. There are no can't miss quarterbacks. Some people may have said Trevor Lawrence. I mean, look how that collapse was for the Jaguars. So I don't know. I don't know. Maybe you trade those picks and try to get more value and build a better team around Justin Fields. Maybe you do trade him and you draft Caleb Williams or another quarterback out of the draft. I'm not sure what you do, but it's interesting that they have also not fired their coach, despite there being so many coaching jobs open and so many coaches out there. Looks like Chicago's going with what they have. So all that ranting aside, let's get into this week's playoff games. 4 games this week, 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. Let's get it in order. The Texans and the Ravens. So this is a rematch from week 1, but both teams are way better than they were then. The spread for this game is laughable. There's no way it's going to be a 9.5 point game. I'm sorry, guys. It's not how that works. They're both very good defensive teams, especially the Ravens. They're probably the best, at least scoring defense in the league. I expect this game to be like 24 to like 18, 19, something like that. I do not expect this. Listen, I'm going to be picking both the winner and against the spread. The spread is too large for this game. Even though I get it, the Ravens have been one of the best teams all year, and they'll probably dispatch of the Houston Texans in a way where they dominate most of the game. But I don't see the score necessarily reflecting that, because the Houston does have a defense of its own, and I can just see this being a slow scoring game that the Ravens just went out. Maybe at some point it's like 21 to like 7, and then Houston comes back and cuts the final score to like, 14-21, something like that. So I would not take all those points if you're a spread person, even though, Vegas is rigged and house always wins. But I still would take the Ravens. I still feel safe that the Ravens are going to win at home, especially with the bye. That said, there is that little part of me that wonders about these teams with the bye. Is it too much rest versus rust? That whole situation, especially since both teams did sit their last game, so they're really going 2 weeks outside of being active into playoff intensity, with 2 young teams in the case of the Packers and the Houston Texans, young quarterbacks who may be too young to get scared of the moment. So that's the interesting thing. And in fact, that's the next game, the Packers 49ers. There's a homer part of me, because this would make my life easier as a Lions fan. There's a homer part of me that wants to pick the Packers in the upset, that wants to pick the Packers and have the Packers come into Ford Field and us go to the Super Bowl and everything work out for Detroit. I don't know that is going to happen. There's a part of me that wants to pull the trigger, because unlike the Ravens, the 49ers quarterback is still the guy who was the last pick in the draft a year or 2 ago. He's still a very young guy. He doesn't have the experience. He'll have never faced anything like this. Now, this isn't his first playoff spot altogether, but this is going to be the first time he's expected to win. And people don't always win when they're expected to win. That said, do I have the balls to actually do it? Do I have the balls to say Jordan Love, the craziness continues, They're a dangerous team in the Packers. They scored a lot of points against the Cowboys for whatever that's worth. I will say this, similar to the last game, spread's too high. This is not going to be a 10-point spread. I think all these spreads are probably too high. This is not going to be a 10-point game. It could be a blowout. It could be one of those games where San Francisco just has too much talent on both sides of the ball and they blow out the Packers. I'm not picking that. I'm going to do the same thing I did for the first game. I will pick the favorite, in this case the 49ers, but I will not pick them to cover the spread for whatever that's worth. So I think the 49ers move on in a game that's going to be a lot closer than what everyone thinks. Speaking of what everyone thinks, it's time for my Lions. And I'm worried as shit because everyone's picking us against the Buccaneers, and I just do not feel that way. Similar, I keep talking about these spreads. I'm basically picking the underdog to cover in each case because I don't think we're going to beat the Bucs by over a touchdown. I think it's going to be another close game just like we had against the Rams. The Bucs have a really good offense. We don't have the best passing defense. We're starting to have a bend but don't break identity. I talked about the coaching stuff. Lord knows I was in the Reddit talking about fire Aaron Glenn. Now I'm like, please don't go. Odds are he's going to be a coach somewhere else. And he's gotten a bend but don't break identity. They stop the run, but they give up a lot of yards against passers and especially against special playmaking type receivers. So I expect Mike Evans to have a hell of a game this week. I know fantasy's done, but if it was going, it would be like, yeah, he's going to get a lot of yards, win, lose, or draw against the Lions. Like I said, 7 points or 6.5. That's a large spread. I don't think we'll win by that much, but I'm going to keep it going. I'm going to pick the favorite. And I'm going to pick them to not cover the wide spread. I think these spreads are too large. I think a lot of Vegas or whatever is looking at these records and not looking at these teams. I think you could throw off the records, especially this year. We're in a very parity-filled year. There's no dominant team. So no, I'm going to go ahead and go with the Lions. I got to go with the home team, but I don't think it's going to be that despair. I think it's going to be a close game. Hey, I know we could be wrong. You know, we obviously played them early in the year and we dispatched them pretty well as far as the Bucs and the Lions, and so that could repeat itself. But I don't think so. I think the Bucs are a much better team than they were earlier in the year, and they're going to show it, and they're going to get a lot closer. Maybe a 30 to 28 type game. Something like that. That's what I would expect for the Lions to squeak by and get to the conference championship. And, you know, they will be facing the 49ers, according to what I think. And the last game, this is going to be honestly the hardest. Bills and Chiefs, a game we've seen quite a lot of in the playoffs. A simple spread, 3 points. The Bills are at home. It's going to be cold in Buffalo. I mean, it gets cold in Kansas City too. I want to pick the Bills. I really do. I want to. But there's no way. Listen, it just never happens where all 4 home teams win. I guess there is a time when it does happen. I'm sure it has happened. But I just don't pick that. I don't think that. I keep saying, when is Vegas going to be involved? When is the NFL going to be involved? Taylor Swift is the biggest star in the league, whether you like her or not. That's why they got 23 million people to pay for that scam on Peacock last week. I just feel like the Chiefs, they are America's new team. No disrespect to the Cowboys, or at least the NFL's new team. I see them moving on. I think we're going to get our Final Four or the conference championships of the Chiefs versus the Ravens in Baltimore, and then the 49ers versus the Lions, obviously in San Francisco. Those are my picks. I have been going back all week. I really want to pick the Green Bay Packers in the upset. I would not be shocked at all if they upset the 49ers. In fact, I wouldn't be shocked regardless what happens. But with all that said, this is 20 minutes. Hopefully I can edit this down. I want to thank anyone who's watching this long ass breakdown of the NFL playoffs. We got a couple weeks to go. Next week will be the conference championships, then the Super Bowl. So I'll try to do one next week before the conference championships, and maybe another one for the Super Bowl. I want to thank anyone who's watching this. I appreciate it. So if you like the video, please like the video. If you're so obliged to share and subscribe, please do that. And even if you do none of these things, thank you for watching. Thank you for your time. Good night and God bless. I'll talk to you guys later.